This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and finally an iPhone to match my outfit. No, but one of the really standout features of the iPhone XR is the fact that it is available in different colors, some of them pretty darn pretty and jolly. But the other neat thing about it is when Apple has made a so-called affordable phone option, like with the iPhone SE, it was usually a generation behind in processor and camera, all that sort of thing. So this affordable version of the iPhone for 2018 is $750 starting price for a 64 gig iPhone. And with that, you get the same processor, you get the same starting 64 gigs of storage that you would in the more expensive $1,000 and up iPhone XS and of course the XS Max. Also, this one is the in-between size, 6.1-inch display. So for those who find the iPhone X or XS now size at 5.8 inches just kind of smaller than you wanted, but the Max still is a huge phone. Too big for you, well, this is the in-betweener size phone. Lastly, when it comes to having current technologies this time around, it's a good thing because we get Face ID on this phone. So for those of you who are ready to make that jump, because Face ID really has worked out well since Apple has introduced it with the iPhone X, and it's a lot more easy and seamless for many of us than using Touch ID. You get that here. We're going to look at it now. So what's got to give? What's different here? Obviously, it's $250 less. Well, you get an aluminum frame instead of a stainless steel frame around the edges, which is the same thing Apple does with their watches, too. The aluminum is the base model, and then the stainless steel is the next step up. Stainless steel is more durable. It looks a little more premium, but the aluminum allows them to do those pretty colors, but it's pretty hard to dye or anodize stainless steel, so that's why they can do this. Also, it's 0.6 millimeters, so just slightly over half a millimeter thicker. Can you tell? Is that more than the thickness of a glass screen protector? No, not really, so I really wouldn't worry about that too much. In terms of durability, it should be about the same. This is glass front and glass back, just like the iPhone XS and the XS Max. Speaking of that, you probably want to use a case. You could say, well, then, oh, yeah, I won't see the pretty colors. Well, there are clear cases out there, too. That's what I do if I really want to see the beauty of my phone. And thanks to our sponsor, Quadabi, who makes minimalist yet protective cases. I actually like their cases a lot. The Sheath and the Veil XT in particular are very thin yet protective from scratches and even from drops as well. Thanks to our sponsor again. I've been using their case, in fact, for my last year's model iPhone, and it's held up quite well. Also, the display is a difference. For those of you who are OLED snobs and you really love OLED displays, this is an LCD. They call it their liquid retina display, I guess, liquid crystal display. That's what LCD stands for. It's 326 ppi, which was the same pixel density for iPhones for a long time, back when they started calling them retina. So yes, it's less than the pixel density of the even higher resolution OLED iPhones. You can see the resolutions on screen to help you figure that one out. In terms of OLED or not OLED, it's really still a very pretty display. Apple does not make crappy displays ever. I'm really not seeing a whole lot of off-axis viewing shifts. Some people have said, oh, it looks less bright. You know, all displays do discolor and get a little less bright off angle, but it's not bad. And it looks pretty good next to our iPhone 8 Plus that you can see as well. So, you know, if most people just walked into a store and saw them side by side, I don't think they'd go, crap and wonderful, looking at the iPhone XR versus the XS. Still at 1792 by 828, of course it's a widescreen resolution display still with a notch. That's not quite 1080p, and some people really want to have at least 1080p resolution for watching their videos. So I get it if you want the more expensive model with the higher resolution and the more popping colors and significantly higher contrast, because OLED has near infinite contrast. There is a reason why Apple can upsell you to the more expensive phone as well. The bezels are bigger. That's the nature of LCDs versus OLEDs. With OLEDs, each pixel is individually lit, so you don't have to worry about a backlight array or anything around the edge of the frame to help with backlighting. So this doesn't have egregious bezels. We don't have the big chin and the big forehead that iPhones used to have with the iPhone 8 generation and previous, but the bezels are bigger, so it has less of a cool look. There's no 3D touch here. Who cares? Nobody. You get LTE 4G here. It's not the faster gigabit LTE that you'll get on the XS and the XS Max models. I don't think that's going to make or break your day. It's still fast enough LTE. But something that might make a difference, and if you're considering upgrading from a previous iPhone model that's fairly recent here, Well, you get a single 12 megapixel rear camera. It's pretty much the same main rear camera as you would have on the XS, and it is a step up from the iPhone 10, but it's only a single camera. So for those of you who really enjoyed the telephoto lens, which I personally do, I like to take a lot of sort of still life photography, portraits, and all that sort of thing, you're losing that second lens. So for those of you who have an iPhone 10 or maybe an iPhone 8 Plus model, consider that and think about the kind of pictures that you take. And you'll lose those fancy portrait modes, you know, the ones that do the fall off light, dark backgrounds and that sort of thing. They do use computational photography, not unlike the Google Pixel 3 family of phones. The drawback here is it's used in conjunction with the telephoto lens on the 8 Plus and on the XS family of phones and on the 10 as well. So here you're going to have to use your feet to zoom, as we say in photography. If you want to do a portrait of somebody, you're going to have to get physically closer to them to get that tight framing without having a lot of background in the back. Also, that computational portrait mode only recognizes people, which is too bad. The Pixel actually can do this, and the Samsung Galaxy family uses 2 cameras to achieve this, of course. But if you're not taking a picture of a person, you want to take a portrait of your cat, for example, it's going to say no person found, so it's not going to trigger that software feature. To say a little bit more about the camera, it's still a very good camera phone, and it should be, right? Even if $750 is now considered the not very expensive phone, that's an expensive phone, people, right? And it really does take lovely photos. I don't think anybody's going to be saying, oh, I really wish I had some other phone. Is it the best camera phone on the market? Clearly not. The Pixel 3 and 3 XL probably still win that award. When it comes to video, though, the iPhones typically do a little bit better there than the Pixel family of phones, and this one still takes lovely video, including 4K video at 60 frames per second, super slow motion video, all those usual things. It's very pleasing. It does a good job in low light, not as good as the fiercest competition. Again, Pixel 3 would be the very best, but I don't see it really falling behind for those sorts of things versus the XS, because really you're looking at the same main camera there. It's just the portrait stuff that you're lacking. Lastly, this has 3 gigs of RAM, like iPhones of old. If you had an iPhone 8 or an iPhone 10 or anything previous, you had 3 gigs of RAM, but with the XS family, we've moved up to 4 gigs of RAM. Makes multitasking a little bit smoother, fewer applications running in the background get killed. Again, this is not something that you're going to notice light and day, but it'll make it feel just a little bit more responsive. In terms of benchmarks, synthetic benchmarks give you a hint of how a phone feels, but that's about it. Interestingly, though, it does score a little bit lower on Geekbench 4 compared to the iPhone XS, even though they're running on the same CPU, but the numbers are fairly close. Battery life is good news here, even though the battery isn't quite as big as the XS Max battery. It's a physically smaller phone. You can see the battery capacities for comparison on the screen. It actually runs a little bit longer even than the XS Max, which has the biggest battery of all. Why? Probably because the display is lower resolution. Even though OLED is usually more power efficient, depending on how much black versus white you're showing. White takes more power than black to show with an OLED display. But still, I'm seeing about 20 minutes to 30 minutes of actual use time longer on the iPhone XR Swing, which is pretty darn nice. As usual, you just have that lightning port. You get the 5-watt slow charger in the box. This does support wireless charging. It is water resistant as well, so you can take it for a little scrub-a-dub-dub in the tub with you, and it should survive just fine. So if you're in the market for a new iPhone, and particularly if you're not doing that upgrade every year carrier payment plan that kind of hides the true cost of the phone, makes it a little bit less painful. Still, this could be as cheap as $10 less a month, even if you're doing that sort of thing. Yeah, it's a very nice phone. It's not lacking. I don't feel like it's a horrible step down from the XS and the XS Max, unless you want that humongous XS Max display, right? But if you're thinking of upgrading, certainly if you're coming from an iPhone 6 or 7 or anything like that, this will be a huge and lovely upgrade that will cost you less. If you have an iPhone 10 already, I don't know. Unless you're looking for a slightly larger display, I probably wouldn't do that. You've already got the nice OLED on the iPhone 10. You've got the dual cameras going on. You've got plenty of performance there. If you have an iPhone 8 or 8 Plus, well, I don't know. Face ID is really very enjoyable, and I like that. I prefer that. I kind of miss it when I don't have it, so that's something that I enjoy over the 8 Plus. The 8 Plus still gives you the dual cameras, though, so it gets a little bit, But you know what? I think Apple pretty much figures that most people who have iPhones are going to be upgrading every other year, so they're probably not thinking so much that this is designed to replace your 8 or your 8 Plus anyway. So that's the iPhone XR. And if you're an iPhone person, an iOS person, and you're on a budget, you just want the nifty colors, you don't want to spend crazy amounts of money, like $1,000 plus, you're not on one of those carrier payment plans that makes it a little bit less painful, yeah, then certainly this is the phone to buy. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.